They kicked me out at 8 years later. They wanted me back. Welcome to Reddit Truth Stories. If you love shocking real-life stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now, let's dive into today's unbelievable story. When I was 8 years old, my life changed forever. That was the night my parents threw me out of the house, deciding I was no longer their daughter. I wandered through the dark streets alone, scared, and confused. But that night I also learned something even more painful. Not all parents love their children equally. I grew up in what seemed like a perfect home from the outside. A large house, expensive furniture, and everything looking flawless. My parents, Jonathan and Catherine Anderson, were highly respected attorneys. They were known for their discipline, intelligence, and success. But inside those walls, love was conditional. And for me, it never really existed. My younger brother, Adam, was their pride and joy. He was everything they wanted. Charming, intelligent, naturally gifted. Whenever he succeeded, they showered him with love and praise. But when I achieved something, silence. And if I failed, the disappointment in their eyes was unbearable. I spent my childhood desperately trying to prove myself, convinced that if I worked hard enough, they would finally see me, finally love me. But I was wrong. One night, everything fell apart. That day, I had taken an important math test, one I had studied for relentlessly, hoping to finally make my parents proud. But despite my efforts, I only managed a C+. As soon as I stepped inside the house, I could hear their voices, sharp, angry, filled with disappointment. "She's an embarrassment," my mother spat. "We've given her everything and she still fails us." My father's voice was even colder. "We've tried shaping her into something worthwhile, but she's simply not meant to succeed." I stood frozen in the hallway, gripping my test paper, feeling my heart pound in my chest. I wanted to run, to hide, but their next words shattered everything. Maybe it's time for her to leave. I was 8 years old, and my own mother was deciding that I didn't belong in her home. After dinner, they called me into the living room. My father sat on the couch, arms crossed. My mother stood beside him, expression unreadable. Adam was nowhere to be found. He never had to witness these moments. "Mia," my father said, voice flat, "you're not meeting our expectations, and quite frankly, we're tired of trying." "Trying what?" I whispered. "Trying to fix you." My mother's voice was cold. "If you can't live up to our standards, then maybe you don't belong here." I felt like the floor beneath me had vanished. Where would I go?" My voice was barely a whisper. My father sighed. "Figure it out." Panic gripped my chest. I begged them, I pleaded. "Please, I'll do better. I'll work harder. Just don't send me away." I reached for my mother's hand, desperate for any sign of warmth. Instead, she slapped me, hard. The force of it sent me staggering, my vision blurring from the pain. I clutched my cheek, tears filling my eyes as I looked up at her in shock. Betrayal written all over my face. "Get out," she ordered. I turned to my father, hoping for some kind of protest, some sign that he disagreed. But he didn't even look at me. And that was it. That was the moment I stopped being their daughter. I ran to my room, threw my few belongings into a tiny suitcase, and walked to the front door. My mother stood in the hallway, arms crossed. My father sat in his chair, flipping through a newspaper as if nothing had happened. One last chance. I stared at them, hoping, praying that they'd change their minds, that they'd see the pain in my eyes and tell me to stay. But they didn't. My mother opened the door and motioned outside. "Leave!" So I did. The cold night air hit me like a slap as I walked down the street, my suitcase dragging behind me. I had nowhere to go, no plan. Just the overwhelming weight of knowing that the people who were supposed to love me had abandoned me. I wandered the streets for hours, my stomach empty, my cheek still stinging, my heart shattered into a million pieces. And just when I thought I couldn't take another step, I heard a voice. "Mia?" I froze. I knew that voice. I turned and saw my Aunt Mary standing beneath a street lamp, her face filled with concern. The moment she took in my bruised cheek and the suitcase in my hand, her expression darkened. "Oh my God, Mia, what happened?" The moment she pulled me into a hug, I broke. I sobbed into her shoulder, Years of silent pain pouring out of me. That night, for the first time in my life, I felt safe. Mary took me in, gave me a home, a fresh start. It wasn't easy. I still carried the weight of my past. But slowly, I began to heal. I worked hard, not for my parents' approval, but for myself. And when Adam, my perfect brother, reached out to me years later, begging for a way out of the life that was suffocating him, I knew what I had to do. Come stay with me. He did. And to get there, we built a new life, one free from our parents' expectations, one where we could finally be ourselves. And then one day my mother called. After years of silence, she suddenly decided I was welcome back home. You need stability, Mia, she said. That little community center nonsense won't sustain you forever. I laughed. I'm never coming back. She tried to argue, to guilt-trip me, to make me feel small again. But it didn't work, because I was finally free, and I had something better than their approval. I had a real family, one I chose for myself. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Stay tuned for more shocking true stories, only on Reddit Truth Stories.